Thank you, Allison, and good afternoon, everyone. As Allison mentioned, my name is Anne. I'm our Chief of Staff at NatureServe, and I've been here since August 2021, so this is my first BWB, and I'm really excited to be here. The goal of today's session is to talk about possible futures for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, or DEIB, at NatureServe. This is a timely conversation for several reasons. We recognize the strength of this moment in time. Powerful external forces, including the Black Lives Matter movement, are exposing systemic racism and other injustice in various forms. We recognize that a range of environmental organizations are grappling with the effects of these issues, particularly on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. We also see these issues from internal perspectives at NatureServe. Many of us have been reflecting on the opportunities that we have had and how they have gotten us to where we are. DEIB has personal dimensions, including how we experience NatureServe's culture, as well as professional dimensions, such as when we encounter racism encoded in taxonomy, and when we grapple with talent recruitment challenges. Yes. We've started to do a few early things. We hosted a network topic call on anti-racism and diversity and biodiversity data. We have initiated an internal task force, which emerged as a staff committee supported by a leadership team who also prioritizes this work. On Monday, we invested 3 hours in a facilitated session on DEIB at our all-hands staff meeting. And I would like to thank Janet Williams of Progressive Discoveries, as well as our task force, both for their leadership on Monday and for shaping our session today. There's a lot more work to do. I would like to acknowledge a feeling of discomfort that many of us may be experiencing when we look at 3 white individuals up on stage. Thank you for laughing. The fact that today's panel doesn't feature non-white individuals underscores the need to have this conversation so that future discussions can include people who represent more racial, ethnic, sexual orientation, or gender presentation differences. Our goal for this session is to have a conversation about DEIB and how it might show up for NatureServe, the network, and biodiversity conservation. I am hoping that our tone can be aspirational and centered around the more responsible future that we hope to see. For today's conversation, as well as for any future work, please embrace NatureServe's values, particularly justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, and transparency, trust, and respect. These values emphasize creating environments where all feel welcomed and supported, recognize the strength in diversity, encourage practicing active listening, and emphasize ensuring positive intent. Now I'm going to introduce our 2 other on-stage speakers, Jim Brumm, the chair of our board, and Dave Anderson, director of Colorado's Natural Heritage Program. Both have prepared a few remarks during the second half of our session. We'd like to hear from you, our audience. We are taking questions and also stories of what you are experiencing and what, if anything, you are starting to do in this area. If you can, please use the WOVA app so that we can have a written record of what is being shared. Thank you again for joining us, and over to you, Jim.
Anne, thanks for setting the stage. This is a very important topic, and as you said, 3 white people, and I'm an old white male, so the worst example, I guess, of being up here to speak. But first, you're a lawyer. Oh, that's even worse. Yeah, we do. That's one issue we don't have on diversity. We have, I think, 3 lawyers on the board, so we need to cut back on that part of it. But anyway, I just want to welcome all of you on behalf of the board. I mean, to me, BWB is just the heart and soul of NatureServe and the network. And I came on the board in 2014, and 2015, I went to my first BWB in Traverse City, Michigan, and then went on to the one in Puerto Rico as well as in Ottawa, Canada. And I mean, these were just, for a board member who's not part of the network, it's just a very impressive experience. I get to see all of the work that people do in the network and the staff. And it's just amazing. I think the one time at Traverse City where another board member and I, we don't have the temptation here, but in Traverse City, there is the Great Bear Dunes. And one board member and I decided to do field work that day rather than sit through the sessions. It was just too beautiful to go out and see. But anyway, coming back to the topic that we're facing, this is very important, and we do need to change, and we need to put a lot more concentrated effort into making sure that we do have diversity and that we do have equity and inclusion, and particularly belonging. I think one of the problems is people will go out and diversity efforts and bring people in, but the atmosphere, the culture doesn't really welcome them, and that can end up defeating your purpose of bringing people in and diversifying. For the board, I would say we have two roles. One is to make sure that we are diversified and that we reflect the population of the US rather than what was, I guess I'd say, maybe the white male power structure. And we have been looking at that. And I think now we need to really up our game. We have a committee that's nominating and governance, and one way we can deal with diversity is to make sure that when we go out and recruit new board members, we go out into all the populations and bring in board members from various parts of society, different ethnicities and races, gender, everything. And we can do that because we do have 13 board members right now, and we can have a maximum of 19. So we have 6 more people we can add. And in discussion with our CEO, Sean, and with the management team and the board, we've decided that we must, going out and looking for those 6, at least bring in 3 in terms of diversity. So that's one thing we will be doing. I think it may sound like this is divorced from the network, but I don't know what you know about the board, but our board has 3 representatives from the network, 2 from the US section and 1 from Canada. So in terms of diversity and in picking those representatives in the future, then I would hope that the sections will make sure that they have good guidelines for bringing on diverse board members from the network. Our second role really as board is we perform a governance function. We make sure that NatureServe acts and lives up to its values. And that is something that we can do by having the board meetings, by talking closely with Sean and with the management, and making sure that the values are there. We've already started on that process with the new strategic plan, which was initiated by management, and one of the values is diversity. So we need to make sure that that is done. The other part of the board plan is making sure that when we staff NatureServe, that we pay attention to that. And with our nominating governance committee, that is an ideal place for making sure that all of these objectives are met. And that's what we'll be doing. It was great on Monday to meet Janet Williams. We will be working with her and having sessions with the board so that we understand the full dimensions of these issues and that we perform our duty. I don't want to take up too much time, but be happy to answer questions. And I'm just so happy to be here at BWB, my 4th one, and look forward to many more. And thank you very much.
Hello, good to be here again with everybody. And I want to thank Anne and NatureServe for putting this before us at this BWB as a really important issue that the whole network needs to do a lot of work on. And I feel like that with this, we're launching into a very interesting future for ourselves. I'm really excited about it. I brought a few slides and some information about the internship program that CNHP has. That's a donor-funded internship program, and part of our DEI efforts at our program are to make improvements through this avenue. So we're doing lots of other things led by our DEI committee at CNHP, but this has some valuable things to share here with you about that. So, and I did feel it was important to acknowledge that awkwardness of being a white male and talking with you about DEI and B. And we got to meet with a consultant on Monday, and I appreciate her words about this, where she said that while we're making improvements, there will be awkwardness. So I'm here to be awkward, I guess. So I'm optimistic that Anne's efforts and NatureServe's efforts are going to change the way that we have this dialogue in the future. And so this is our internship, our interns from 2021. Our program enlarged from 6 to 12 this past year with additional inputs from our donors. We're totally beyond excited about that. And so these are our interns in 2019. That's the year that we really started to be intentional in our efforts to increase the diversity of our internship cohort. At that time, we became interested in more of a cross-representation and in creating a mosaic of interns. So this past year, we had a really large and diverse cohort of interns, and we went about recruiting those interns in a different way these last few years. A really important part of that was how we advertised the internship. So the internship, another really important part of this internship is that it is paid. Volunteer opportunities are a huge barrier to equity. They they are an opportunity only for the most privileged of kids. So I think having a paid internship is one of the most important parts, and fortunately our donors are totally on board with that and understand why that's so important. We also, you'll see here, there aren't any requirements for experience in the outdoors because prior experience hiking and camping and backpacking really reduces diversity of the applicants, and any others that might have been interested who haven't had those experience would feel really anxious and unworthy in applying for it. So we've tried to remove all of the walls that are barriers to increasing diversity of the program. We reached out to and actively recruited from clubs with diverse memberships. I think all of us have fallen into the trap of saying, well, this was our applicant pool and it wasn't diverse. So these were the people that we had to hire from. And I think that falls on us because we get the applicant pool through the work we do to recruit people. And so it's on us to get a diverse applicant pool. So we engaged with some of the student groups at CSU that are aimed at attracting diverse students. SEEDS is a really cool one. It's a part of there's chapters at universities all over the country. It's a program through the Ecological Society of America. One of our last year interns came from SEEDS. We also have had a lot of success with this group, Manners, Minorities in Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Related Sciences. And there's chapters of Manners at universities all over the place. The woman third from the left, they, Rachel, uses non-binary pronouns. Wow, that was a big stumble right in front of a humongous crowd. Okay, there will be awkwardness. Okay, let's own this. My apologies if you're watching, Rachel. Has been the president of Manners. So through Rachel, we got some great outreach and connected with a lot of students, and that was really fun. We also reached out to the CSU Diversity and Inclusiveness Committee, Asian Pacific America Cultural Center, Black African American Cultural Center, Native American Cultural Center, Diversity and Human Rights Committee, El Centro, and Latino Outdoors. Those were who we reached out to this year. This year, coming up in 22, we just made all of the job offers and have the most diverse mosaic of students in this coming year's internship cohort that we've ever had. So, super exciting. So another thing we changed is how we sort of bring students through the hiring process. So this is probably horribly small for all of you. Question 4 is one of the questions I wanted to talk about. If I was smart, I'd have put it on something big so I could read it to you, but I can't even see it on my screen. It's basically asking, so what do you bring to the internship? And we started asking that question last year. Very first applicant that I asked that to, she was just like, oh, I don't know. Like, she was terrified by that question. So, because she expected us, she took that as, what experience do you have? And so we were asking, no, like, are you enthusiastic? Or, are you good at making friends? Can you work, with other people well? Or do you, what are your favorite things that you like to do outside? Or, we tried to take the fear out of that. And so we had to unpack that question. And then question 5 is really super important. That one, pardon me, I'm going to read it to you.
The CNHP makes a strong effort to promote a culture of inclusivity. What are your thoughts about working with coworkers and partners with different backgrounds and identities, including working with identities from underrepresented groups, conservation, and/or backgrounds and identities differing from yourself?
So we don't force anyone to answer a question that they're uncomfortable with, or that the intent of that question is not to make people self-identify if they're not non-gender conforming, or some identify with some particular ethnic or racial identity. But the students have loved this question. They have usually self-identified when we ask this question. They express gratefulness that we're even thinking about this question. And it is just inspiring to be around young people now. Like, they just get it. They're so passionate about change and making improvements. They immediately, they don't make that pronoun slip that I just did. They just get it. And they have the most wonderful answers to this question. Even students that don't identify from diverse backgrounds have wonderful answers of how excited they are to be a part of that. In the future, we think our latest idea is to have one of our former interns participate in the hiring process, because having someone who's been through the program also reduces the anxiety and fear that students have when they're getting interviewed. So some thoughts that I have about doing this are that we have to be really proactive in how we start bringing people into our network. This internship is a wonderful way to do that. We've been pretty successful in that. I bet some of you met Emma here. Emma started out as one of these interns. We've brought some wonderful people into our sphere through this internship. So we have to give interns responsibilities and valuable experiences, really things that give them some responsibility. Last summer, one of our zoologists let them drive one of the vehicles on this gnarly 4-wheel drive road at a BLM site called The Crown. And she taught them how to do it, and they were really scared, and she was really scared to have someone driving the car that had never done that before, but it went great. They felt really empowered and overcame some fears that they had. And we need to check in on the interns. We need to be really proactive in seeing how they're doing, check in on their morale. How do they feel like they're fitting in? Are they comfortable in their work, confident in their abilities? And we need to actively help them build their resumes, because students, young people becoming as emerging professionals need to get those lines on their resume. And this is a way that we can really make a difference in all of our work. So taking actions to reduce anxiety on entering jobs like this, like we've tried to do with our hiring and interview process. I also forgot to mention an important thing we do with those interview questions. We email those to them before they come to the interview so that they know what we're going to ask them. And that is a huge reducer of anxiety. This year, they were grateful for the fact that we did that. We have to be flexible, because increasing diversity means that people have different needs, different living situations. They might not have a car, or might not have access to the same resources. So we have to be flexible and really proactive about that. We have to be really supportive and proactive with help in the field. They get a list of gear that they have to bring out in the field, water bottles, backpacks, sunscreen. And so we've been very intentional in looking at what they have and helping to make sure that they have the right gear. Last year, we bought one of our interns a set of hiking boots, and making sure they have enough water. I mean, everyone, before you start doing field work, doesn't really appreciate the fact that you really do need those 2 quarts of water in your backpack if you haven't done that work before. So in doing that in a non-punitive, non-threatening way, so that the interns don't feel inadequate or don't feel singled out as being the one that wasn't ready that day. We also do trainings in safety, DEI specific issues in the field, partnering with our college on some trainings on that. We do a 2-aid wilderness first aid training class with everybody. So just imparting the knowledge to help everybody be safe and feel safe as part of that training. And of course, reaching out to new places to recruit the people that you're bringing on. I think that applies to all of us, whether you're doing interns or staff. All of us can do that. The last one I wanted to leave you with was just my personal thoughts about this are that we are responsible. We are the ones that have to do this, those of us online and in this room. And if we're going to be NatureServe, we serve nature, and nature is diverse, and we need to be diverse. So, sort of thinking about this, if we want to be diverse, we have to invest in a diverse workforce. Even if we don't get to be the direct beneficiaries of that, we don't hire all of our interns, but they go out into the world and take on professional roles. Imagine if this whole network started to increase our diversity, thousands of people across all these programs. We, NatureServe and the NatureServe Network, can make a huge difference in this. And if we want to have an intelligentsia that cares about rare species and biodiversity, we have to be the ones to create that intelligentsia. No one else is going to do that for us. So I'm excited about the future for NatureServe Network and the difference that we can make collectively towards a better future. So I think that's all the words I had for you, other than my gratitude for the chance to share this with you.
So we have one question from the app. Thank you, Caroline. Would the CNHP internship program accept students from out of state or other universities?
aren't wired up to accept non-students. We did have a student in 2021. She's still working with us in our office, who's from Tuskegee University. Our college has formed some partnerships with HBCUs, some tribal colleges, and they're trying to nurture that and increase the flow of students coming in who have an opportunity to do their senior year in the Warner College and then go to grad school from there. So we were very fortunate to have one of those students last year, and we can make some special arrangements to do that, partnering up with our college. So yes, there is a possibility to do that. In general, our interns are CSU student hourlies because that is by far the most cost-effective and easy way for us to bring them in.
Thank you. We have another question for your experience, but also I'd like to know that Sean is ready to run the mic. If anybody has a question but doesn't have the app handy, just feel free to raise your hand. Funding can be an issue for some organizations. Can you share more information on your idea about creating an internship around federal work study students?
That is an absolutely wonderful way to start an internship program because students who've applied for federal student aid through the FAFSA get, I think the feds pay 70% of their salary. So I'll just put this out to the world that any student at CSU that comes to us with a work study award says that they're interested in working for us, I just call that the job interview, and I give them a job because it costs us about $3 an hour to have them be our intern. And it's like, we can figure that out. So for starting an internship program that way, that's a great way to do it. We bring on interns who work on state and federal projects and support those projects and add value to it. We can use the internship funds as match. We do every year because it really is contributing real work and benefit. It's completely, there's no argument about that. And we, the challenge with doing this is for us has been finding the most wonderful donors in the world who are willing to also support our time in mentoring them. That's a critical element of this because if they just get thrown at us without time for us to work with them and find projects for them and cultivate projects and train them, then it's really hard for us to take on someone. So finding support for that mentorship is important.
We have a question from Michael. Have you engaged with the Navajo Nation Heritage Program to get their input and perspective? I can answer that from my perspective. I have not personally. Our goal for this session was to take advantage of the fact that we are all here together in person to have an initial conversation with the board, with the NatureServe Network, and with what I think of as headquarters, natureserve.org. This is an initial conversation, and we need to engage the Navajo Nation Heritage Program and a lot of other people moving forward in terms of what that might look like. The consultant that we worked with on Monday, Janet Williams, is going to give us a report based on a staff survey. And I would anticipate that our task force will work with at least the nominating and governance committee of the NatureServe board to figure out what we're going to do next, and then hopefully also speak with our network partners about how to engage the Navajo Nation and many other programs. I don't know if you two have anything to add.
No, I guess. Is it on? No. Okay. Yeah, I guess the question I have too is, I mean, are there other natural heritage programs with other tribes, that we've had experience with in the past? I think the Navajo is the only one I know of.
Do any other audience members have insight into this question?
No, it just seemed like there must be a lot of biodiversity data out there that the tribes are familiar with. I don't know how much they pay attention to it or how well funded they are, but it just seems like a great opportunity to expand all of the biodiversity work that the network's doing.
Bryce?
In Montana, there's the Federated Salish and Kootenai Tribal College. We've had tribal college members do summer field surveys for bats under bridges as a way of involving them. But I know from speaking to the head of that program, they get tribal members from all over the country that come to that tribal college, and they would love to have them do projects in the states where the reservations are based. So that's an opportunity anyway.
Actually, a tiny addition to that is for the Van Humboldt tour, when we go to Wyoming, we're going to visit an Arapaho ranch because the Wyoming program is working with the tribe there. Max had a question.
Thanks. So let's see. I am wondering about, I've just been thinking about within NatureServe, and as the speaker has addressed, that as you start to bring in people with different identities, how do you make them feel comfortable, give the safe space to express their identity? And I know one way of doing that is through affinity groups, deliberate interactions with people that share the same identity. NatureServe isn't huge, and a lot of the network programs are smaller. And I'm wondering, is there a way to use the network where if there are multiple network programs that have internship programs like this or are hiring staff from different identities, can we create those affinity groups across the network? And that could cause more interaction across the network and also just be able to draw from a greater pool to actually create those groups.
I don't see why not.
A lot of people are nodding. Thank you for that. I know we're a bit over, but I saw a couple of hands raised in the corner, so maybe Allison will give us one more minute. Thank you.
I just wanted to speak a little bit about the interaction with the tribes. Arizona has 27% of our land area is tribal. And we have, like 4 of the top 10 largest reservations in the nation, all within our state. Many of them do have their own wildlife programs. We interact regularly with the botanists. We find the botanists seem to be the most outgoing, kind of counterintuitive of all of the wildlife agencies on the reservations. So we've worked with the Navajo program quite extensively. They actually have a full-blown Endangered Species Act. And so we track their status and report that on projects in our environmental review tool. But right now, the Tohono O'odham, who's expressed interest a couple times in becoming a program, we're working with their botanists and the Fish and Wildlife Service on some rare plant survey work as well. But I think one of the things that with the tribes being really stressed for resources, NatureServe needs to come up with a different plan if you want to engage with them in this type of activity, more of what we had done with the LAC with point observations or something, not full-blown biotics. And so I think it's going to take a little bit different structure to get them engaged and to get them moving forward, because we've got some reservations, some tribes that let us use their data, let us share the data, and others where they have their own hunting and fishing regulations, their own environmental compliance regulations that do want to keep the information just within the tribe. So it's, but they're engaged. It's not that they're not engaged, they're just engaged at different levels.
I want to follow up on that. There's $97 million in the WAWA, current version of WAWA for tribal nations for wildlife management. So I see that would be a wonderful opportunity for working more closely with the tribes.
The Navajos get Section 6 funding every year. So they're doing the same work we are.
Thank you all for that input. Is there an obvious way to continue this discussion after BWB?
Wow.
Thank you, Misty.
Too much talking and laughing last night. Anyway, after the anti-racist nomenclature topic call that we had in January, there was a lot of interest and feedback, both within NatureServe and from the network about how are we going to do this. It's, there are a lot of different approaches. There's many different themes and areas of our work, both organizationally, but taxonomy, the broader issue of conservation and our mission that all overlap to some degree on this. And I just want to say I'm super excited to see all the interest in this and the momentum from building from that. In the chat for the meeting, I put a link to a survey that I put out. Initially, it just went to the attendees from that topic call because we didn't quite know what we were doing and I didn't want to be inundated and have way too many people with no plan forward. But anybody who's interested in joining this conversation in NatureServe at the network level, please just go sign up and we'll be following up with you in the coming weeks.
Thank you, Misty, and thanks again to Jim, and thank you to Dave for getting up on stage today, and thanks to everyone for listening and being part of the discussion.
Thank you.
I'm Sean O'Brien, he, him pronouns, and I want to thank you for coming to BWB and participating in all of the different conversations that we've had throughout this. They're all super important. As I said at the beginning, we're doing nothing less than trying to stop a geologic scale event from happening. And the work that we're all doing together is so, so important. We're going to, I'm going to say a couple things, and then we're going to break for lunch, and then we're going to have a little awards ceremony. And the thing that's important about the awards ceremony is everybody, where's Darren? Everybody gets a participation award. This really is such important work that I really hate that we can only give out a few awards to all of the amazing people that are out here and all of the incredible knowledge that the people are sharing and all the institutional information that people have. So I want to thank all of you. I also want to thank the people who made this all possible again. Allison Gratz, Misty Nelson, Iveta Bakalova, Nicole Iturralde, Sam Balilti, Ali Kenlin, Ann Bowser, Amy Doty, and Mike Jewell, who's been the unsung hero of all the technology. First time IT got a round of applause. And I also want to return and thank our sponsors. You've seen their names a number of times on the board and in the app, but the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources and the Western Pennsylvania Conservancy really made this possible, and they stepped in early and often to make sure that this would happen and that we would all come to Pittsburgh and experience the great hospitality here, as well as some of the great field trips that are coming. The field trip to Ohiopyle tomorrow is essentially what we did last fall with the Van Humboldt tour, and it was really cool. Chris Tracy will tackle you if you step on a plant in the river scour. So that video was very carefully made that he showed the other day. I know from personal experience, you want to watch your feet. I mean, most botanists are like, yeah, you can step on that, but not these ones. Also want to thank NatureServe Canada, the Sustainable Forestry Initiative, and the Virginia Natural Heritage Program for their sponsorship. Again, we couldn't be here without the support from all of those organizations. So thank all of the sponsors. And then I'm sorry that I missed a day of the conference. It was really personally disappointing, as everyone knows. The last thing I want to do is sit alone in a hotel room, ever, but especially after the last couple of years. Being alone like that for yet another day was a little bit brutal. So anyway, I'm just gonna wrap up, but I really, again, thank you for coming. You've now met most of NatureServe's staff. Almost everybody was here and almost everybody is still here. And we really appreciate the new connections and the new networking. We really hope that that will allow us to continue all of the kinds of conversations that we need to have if we're gonna break down the boundaries between us so that we can truly do what we need to do, which is to make sure that the amazing biodiversity of North America is protected and preserved for future generations. So thank you.
So Sean told you you could all take a break to eat, but I'm here to tell you also have to listen, because now we're at one of my personal favorite parts of this, which is recognizing all the people in the room, or in this case, not in the room, who have contributed to our collective efforts over the past year and really 50 years. So the first award today, the first award we'd like to give out today is the award for collaboration. Last time I got to stand at this podium, you might remember I had this great data to decisions life cycle up there, which really embodies how the NatureServe Network does its work. And a big thing running across all those stages was collaboration, because it's really through working together that we're able to have the impact that we have. So this award really recognizes a person in our network who embodies that attribute. And unfortunately, the person who that is had to leave a little bit early. But this year, we're giving the award for collaboration to John Otting from the Florida program. So couple words about John and why he's getting this award. I first started working with him a couple years ago on the map of biodiversity importance. He was part of the advisory group for that effort. And I realized right away what a great collegial colleague he was. He was always able to kind of step up, say something insightful, and just approach that work with the spirit of how can we do things well together. For those of you who went to John's talk this morning about the regional project in the Southeast doing habitat modeling work, you saw that he's really leading on the technical side on network projects at the regional level, but also at the continental level. He was a member of the working group for the network habitat modeling standard, which I think is one of the kind of most exciting things to come out of the network this year in terms of collaboration. It's setting us up to provide new, more relevant data. And he helped us through all of that. He's been involved in things beyond habitat modeling. He was really crucial. He devised the framework that we are using for how we talk about spatial data in terms of documented occurrence, likely occurrence, potential occurrence. That's really going to be instrumental to the development of NatureServe Explorer Pro. And he's helped us tackle things that can be a little thorny and hard to take on, like the revenue sharing framework for the network. And through all of that, John approaches things with innovation and creativity and this willingness to find solutions. He's somebody that I never hesitate to pick up the phone to call, because what am I getting myself into? He's always looking for those solutions, and he's always willing to give of his time for this awesome group of people and the work we're doing together. So I'm very excited to give this award to John today.
Well, we seem to be starting our award ceremony with, everybody knows the concept of ghosting? Okay. So John couldn't make it, and I'm about to do the award for network innovation. and that is going to one of my staff, who also can't be here at the moment. He is in a leadership program and had a conflict with it. So this award is going to Josh Cohen. And what I want to talk about a little bit about Josh is not only Josh, but how this award and what he's been doing, what he's been innovating, really underscores what it is we do. Josh has been with MNFI forever, longer than me, and he started out basically doing botanical surveys. He's an ecologist. He's collected a ton of data. He has worked with teams to basically survey all of the state game areas throughout Michigan. There's 83 of them, I think 83 or 86. So he's amassed an enormous amount of data. He's taken that information and he also developed the natural community scheme for Michigan. So he's building up from that survey data, looking at how these plants, primarily plants that he looks at, fit together and came up with the natural communities of Michigan. Including just defining those communities, he also looks at what's necessary for the stewardship of them, which is really kind of, you're seeing the trend here. This is building on basic research, basic surveys, taking data, turning it into knowledge, and then he's taken that knowledge of the communities and worked with our technical people, our IT people, to develop a tool that is used for prioritization for prescribed burns. And this is really cool. So he's worked with our ecologist, Jesse Lincoln, Tyler Bassett, Aaron Kortenhoven. Then he teamed up with another ecologist, Clay Wilton, to talk about what would be the approach for building a tool that could be used. And he's worked with our IT folks, Helen Nenander, Courtney Ross, to actually build the tool. And the tool is now out and in use by the state DNR. And it's been so successful so far that he has been asked by the Forest Service to start if he can apply that tool to theirs. So this is how, this is the importance of getting the basic information, taking that data, turning it into knowledge, turning it into tools, and then applying it for stewardship, for conservation, which is what we're all about. So I am tickled that Josh is the overall award winner for this. And I think, Allison, we have a tape of, how's that get started?
I want to express my sincere gratitude for NatureServe for this award. I'm sorry I can't be there in person to accept it. I've been collaborating for the past 4 years with colleagues at Michigan Natural Features Inventory and our partners in the Michigan Department of Natural Resources Wildlife Division who funded this modeling effort. Specifically, I wanted to mention the contributions of fellow ecologists Clay Wilton, Jesse Lincoln, Tyler Bassett, and Aaron Kortenhoven, and our GIS analysts, Helen Nenander and Courtney Ross. Our natural ecosystems are changing at an alarming rate due to the array of threats they face. We need to employ tools that can match the pace and scale of this unprecedented change and facilitate the prioritization of biodiversity stewardship in the most ecologically important areas. Our modeling efforts have been focused on identifying where the application of prescribed fire is most needed from an ecological perspective. I want to encourage folks throughout the network to consider utilizing GIS-based multi-criteria decision analysis, since it offers a powerful means for harnessing institutional and expert knowledge to answer where should we questions. Finally, I want to wish you all a productive burn season, and remember, biodiversity begets biodiversity.
Good afternoon. My name is Bryce Maxwell. I'm the program coordinator at the Montana Natural Heritage Program, and today it's my pleasure to present the NatureServe Network Award for Leadership, which recognizes the contribution of an individual organization that serves as a role model or leader to the network and seeks to advance NatureServe's and the network's collective mission to support conservation decisions with science, technology, and data. And it's my pleasure to present this award to Jim Brumm. Jim is the president of Glastonbury Commons Limited, a consulting firm, and he served as an executive vice president and general counsel of Mitsubishi International Corporation in the US and was a member of the Mitsubishi Corporation board in Japan for his career. He joined the NatureServe board in 2014 and has served as a board chair since 2019. He also serves on the board as a board chair of the Amazon Conservation Association, the Global Forest Generation, the American past board chair of the American Bird Conservancy, and the International Crane Foundation. Jim's led the board through one of the most critical transitions that I think NatureServe has had over the last few years. He spent a lot of time and effort at stabilizing the board and NatureServe's executive group. And for that, he has my thanks. And I would invite everybody in the room to join me in thanking him. You want to say a few words?
This is a complete surprise. So I have not prepared any remarks. I'm honored to be honored this way. And I mean, you know, NatureServe, I think is, I don't know if you've heard Sean speak about how it is the greatest organization that nobody knows about. I was approached, it was a Mitsubishi environmental breakfast, and I met the Mary Klein at that time and Aaron Chen, who were with the CEO and the development officer. And, you know, I didn't know who they were. And then I got to know them, and I just thought, why? I just can't not be a part of this. I mean, this is just so critical, preserving the biodiversity, and it's such a great organization, the board, the staff, the network. And as I mentioned earlier, I've been to BWB, this is my 4th time, and it just excites me every time to see the people and see the field work that's being done. And this is just such a critical mission. And I'm just so happy to be a small part of it. And thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Patrick Henry, Executive Director of NatureServe Canada. I'd just like to start off by saying I wish we had more of our membership here, member representatives. It's a travel approval issue with governments. So they would love to be here, and I speak on their behalf to say, you know, they will be a strong force at the next BWB. It's my honor to present the NatureServe Conservation Award to a very deserving recipient. The award honors individual and institutional achievements that increase and advance public awareness and scientific understanding of biodiversity conservation. This year's recipient is recognized for his work in advancing the concepts and real-world implementation of open data in Canada. His commitment to and promotion of open data within his host organization, the Canadian Federal Department, Environment and Climate Change Canada, and within the NatureServe Canada network has led to very significant investments and achievements towards the real-world implementation of open data by provincial, territorial, and federal governments in Canada. However, when it comes to open data, talk is cheap. To make foundational changes within bureaucracies, i.e. governments, you need funding. Our award recipient successfully worked to secure and direct federal government funding to NatureServe Canada, who allocated the funds to a broad suite of open data focused projects over the past 4 fiscal years. And to date, over $2.6 million Canadian has been allocated to open data projects administered by NatureServe Canada. That's about 50 US bucks if you're doing the math right now. But the recipient did not just, secure funds. He's had a key role in the scoping and implementation of our marquee open data projects. And just a few examples. We have our Data Security Policy and Procedures Initiative The focus of that objective is really to create standardized approaches, terminology, definitions related to the identification of restricted data and how to make it flow between organizations. The award recipient's been an active member of the Data Security Policy and Procedures Committee, which is a multi-organization committee. And I certainly encourage network members to take a look at the project page on the website, natureserve.ca. You can access the Data Security Policy and Procedures Initiative. A lot of money has flowed, open data money, to our member program, Conservation Data Centers, because ultimately open data is about the data. Primary focus of that work has been on data gaps between our jurisdictions to make sure that our species at risk are really we don't have major gaps between provinces and territories. And then, of course, all of that data is made available to the public at no cost by our member program, Conservation Data Centers, through the NatureServe Explorer platform. Speaking of Explorer platform, our award recipient and his organization, Environment and Climate Change Canada, has invested over $1 million towards the development of the Explorer Pro platform, all with the idea of making data available for conservation decision-making. The NatureServe Explorer platform is pushing our CDCs to work with their host governments to rapidly advance the real-world implementation of open data by their jurisdictions. And of course, our award recipient sits on the Canadian focus group that looks and works specifically at how to make Explorer Pro useful in terms of making data available publicly at no cost. So this year's NatureServe Conservation Award goes to Charles Francis, Manager, Wildlife Monitoring and Assessment at Environment and Climate Change Canada's Canadian Wildlife Service. Congratulations, Charles, and thank you for your ongoing work and commitment to the promotion of open data in Canada. And of course, Charles can't be here today because of those travel approval issues that I mentioned, but if everybody could, round of applause to thank Charles.
I'm very pleased to accept this award on behalf of the Canadian Wildlife Service and Environment and Climate Change Canada. We are very committed to try to make conservation data on species distribution and abundance and status as widely available as possible to support conservation actions. We strongly believe that if the data are not accessible, then they don't get used to support conservation, and it sort of undermines a lot of our efforts to collect and manage and gather those data. So we're very pleased that NatureServe has been so receptive to developing the NatureServe Explorer platform in such a way that data are increasingly accessible to, well, Canadians in Canada and Americans in the US and throughout the world to support conservation actions. This is one of a number of other initiatives that we're also undertaking to make data available, including the internal Environment Canada data, as well as data housed by other collaborators such as Birds Canada.
Well, it's pretty fun to be here and a great pleasure to get to tell you about this year's winner of the Bob Jenkins Lifetime Achievement Award. And there is nobody I can think of who has done more to embody the spirit of Bob Jenkins' commitment to conservation, all the way from working at heritage programs and accumulating natural heritage data, being an expert on field biology, and in putting those data to work through his work at TNC, developing conservation plans, and then going out and actually saving the land itself where these things live. Like, good grief, he did all of it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'd rather just say who he is and keep it a secret here. So let's give this award here today to Chris Paig. He's not quite off the hook yet. I got to say a few more things about him here. I wanted to acknowledge your long history with the network, where you started as a zoologist at the Virginia Natural Heritage Program. And working right alongside Bob Jenkins back then. And I know your Colorado part of your career a lot better than that part, but I do also know that you've worked with so many people in this room, so many people at the programs in this room, that you should, maybe you should come up here. This is your award. I'm just the talking head. And that you've worked with so many people and had such a varied and wonderful career. And I want to talk about what you did in Colorado, because that's pretty amazing stuff. Our program started in 1979 as part of the DNR in the state government, and it went into a box in the 1980s when the budget was cut for it. And so you resurrected our program and established it as a university program in 1992 at CU and moved us up to CSU in 1994. And you are the patriarch of CNHP in the best sense of that word. You are a force of conservation, and you are a living legend in Colorado and beyond, as the fact that you know half the people in this room proves, I think. So your actions in getting CNHP established so successfully have had a hugely outsized impact. The groundwork that you laid has ramified into so many of Colorado's conservation success stories. On top of the impact that you had on conservation on the ground, and you also, in leading CNHP to be a part of those, and in getting us set up at CSU, you also had this outsized impact on creating so many successful careers, bringing together such an awesome staff that you first assembled for us, and who have gone on to have successful, impactful lives. They really just didn't ever retire. They stayed. They're just starting to retire right now. I wanted to tell you all about one of my strongest memories of Chris from the very earliest days at CNHP when I first started. Back in about 2000, we did that BioBlitz of Chico Basin Ranch. We're walking along Chico Creek, and Chris is telling me about the ranch and kind of making me really feel at home as part of the network. And all of a sudden, just out of the blue, Chris just lunges into the creek with his net, and he catches an Arkansas darter, G3, G4, S2. And he shows me the little Arkansas darter, and that's the first time I ever saw an Arkansas darter. And that was so cool. And you've taught so many people in those ways at your retirement party. That he had a retirement party, but he didn't retire. So those stories were awesome, and just seeing how many lives you've changed and how many people you've taught. And so I think of that fish as a metaphor for how you have been so successful in conservation, because you have this uncanny ability to seize opportunities and capture them when they happen. And you have seen so many opportunities to conserve land across Colorado and elsewhere. I don't even know how many acres. I've been to so many ranches in Colorado that are conserved now pretty much because of you. One of them's a state park that you got us involved in doing surveys on now. And, you know, I don't know if anyone's tried to add up how many acres have your name on it there, but it's the highest of honors to stand here and be here with you for this award. So.
For those of you who actually worked with Bob Jenkins, you can hear him grumbling now. You would have to be in the room with him and almost give a dissertation on why any of this would be happening. And he would also grumble about, we're almost too late, we're almost too late. But I notice on the award it says, onward and upward. Bob always ended a meeting, a speech with onward and upward. And so what I can say is, even as a little kid, all I wanted to do was work in nature, and I didn't know what it meant. A bunch of white guys were my heroes, Davy Crockett and Daniel Boone. I'm sure they were sinners to the max. But they got outside, and they were always outside. That's all I ever wanted to do, and it actually came true in a very different sense. But instead of wrestling with bears, I jumped in and caught darters or turtles or whatever else. And I've been really blessed to be able to work with a huge body of NatureServe people through the years. In my initial work with the Virginia Natural Heritage Program under, at that time, Michael Lipford, we had just such an amazing cast of characters that helped embody that program. And then when the opportunity came up to go to Colorado, you know, I wasn't really, I mean, I'd spent my entire life studying the natural history of Virginia. What the heck was I doing? But it was a great opportunity, and I thought that, well, I'll go there, I'll get it in 5 years. I think I can get that program where it needs to be, and then I'll come home. Well, I guess Colorado's an okay place to be stuck if you got to be stuck somewhere. And so I stayed, also had a child there, and she is a lover of nature and NatureServe and is a great field companion. But what I want to say real quickly here is that this whole journey for me it's a really important thing that I came here, not because of an award, but because I got to see one of the things that really inspirited me, and I think could inspirit many, many more people. And all of us have this problem. How do we get our message out? How do we get it out? I'm listening to a talk about spring snails. Most of the world has no clue that they are there, much less that they have actually interesting taxonomy. How are we going to get that message across? But they have an interesting life history and a relationship. And that's really critical. And so to see you guys working on those data and assembling it, and I would believe that NatureServe's data, I use it all the time. I used it in those protection, which, by the way, it's 667,000 acres in eastern Colorado have been protected since we got the Natural Heritage Program up, and it's all based on Natural Heritage Program data that happened. There was no private land protection in eastern Colorado when we got there. So thank you and the whole crew, an amazing crew in the Colorado Natural Heritage Program for continuing to provide that in the updates. But I think I'll just end with this. The most important thing is how many of you have ever hiked? You're sweating. Well, in the east, you're sweating. In the west, you're just dehydrating. But you're sweating and you're breathing hard, especially if you're in the Rockies or even just going up a canyon wall in the eastern prairie of Colorado. You're just going on, and all of a sudden you turn around and you look back where you were. Well, that's where I kind of am with this. It's really a great experience for me to be able to look back and see nothing but what Alan Weekly called a little bit hopeful cynicism. And you are the hope in that cynicism and the information you've got and how to use it and how to get it out there and inspire people. We need that badly. And so I am today looking back with a huge cast of characters that I worked with and were blessed to be associated with. But I did retire from the Nature Conservancy so that I don't have any more staff meetings, no trainings, no forms to fill out. I have a few hours here and there I keep. But really, it's about, I'm not dead yet, and there's a lot of conservation to be done, and I'm going to do all the fun, great projects. And I hope to actually see you all here next year, wherever the meeting is. So thank you so much. It's so meaningful. I'm humbled.
I'll be quick, I swear. So before we close, I just wanted to fix an error that my boss made by forgetting to thank the board of directors in his closing comments for all of their support. And I'm not sure if people were aware of this, but it wouldn't have been possible for us to bring all of the staff to BWB without their willingness to financially support that and use, part of our very sparse budget to bring everybody here. So please join me in thanking the board of directors for giving us that. And that's it. So I want to thank you all, everyone who came here and who is still here. It's fantastic to see you all. I've had a great conference. I hope you did as well. And all the folks online, I hope you had a great experience as well with what we were able to show to you and do for you. So I hope we get to do this again with a bigger group and, more people here, more people online. And I hope we get to do it again soon. So thank you.